river today in this beautiful spot under this gorgeous tree. I just finished recording a couple of podcast episodes and I thought I would just jump on a live here and see if anyone shows up with any questions. I would love to just open this space. I would like to do this a little more often, just opening space for conversations about birth and death. I feel like these are two huge aspects of human life. You know, some people die before they're born, um, but we're all birthed and we all die, and yet we don't talk about it that much. So if you have a question or a comment about birth or death, I would love to hear from you. Otherwise, I'm just gonna kind of like riff and talk a little bit um, about my experiences in life with birth and death, and just sort of my own lens here. So for me, birth and mothering and motherhood has been a lifelong passion and dream, and I've just been obsessed with birth since forever. Like, have seen so many birth videos. I couldn't even tell you how many birth videos I have watched. Not to mention all the birth stories that I've listened to. I follow several birth podcasts and have listened to like all the episodes on so many shows. I also do birth story medicine myself with women. Um, so that's where I am with birth. I've had 5 births myself. 2 have resulted in living children, and the other 3 were early births and an infant loss. So in that aspect, like, there was also death, and that brings me to speaking about women. So I'm a woman. As a woman, as women, biological females, we hold birth and death like within us. Like, each month that we're bleeding, menstruating women, we ovulate a living egg, an egg that has the potential to become a human life. We release from our ovaries and into our womb each month. And then, if this egg is not met um, by a sperm and fertilized, that egg dies. Or even if it is met, that little spark of life might die a few weeks or months later inside someone's womb. But if it's not fertilized, then that little egg, that little potential of that particular genetic human being that could have been, then is birthed through our cervix and out our pussy, out our vagina, out our vulva. With our blood, we birth that egg with our blood each month. Each month. Birth and death are forever intertwined. You can't have one without the other, because one thing couldn't be living without the opposite of being dying, birthing, living, and to be alive and to be dead are 2 different things. And we need birth. There's birth within our own bodies. There's birthing of ideas. There's birthing of nature. There's birthing of fruits and flowers. But birth and death, you just like light and dark, the yin and the yang, we have both. And what my life and my experiences in my life, the events of my life have brought me to reverence of not just the birth, but also the death. The first big death experience in my life was of my first love, Bjorn. I loved him dearly, still do love him. I feel him with me often. He shows up and reminds me that he's here. But he had a battle with cancer, and he eventually died, and just his mother and I were there present with him when he took his last breath. So first breaths and last breaths, I just feel there's so much there. So that was my initiation into death, was in this big way, to death and to grief and to my mortality. I was 25 years old. I hadn't really considered dying at that young of an age and couldn't believe that, my love was dying, and yet he did. That also brought me a deeper relationship with the spirit realm as I felt his spirit and soul around me and at different times. And then I went on and decided to become a registered nurse. I went to nursing school, and one of my first days of what's it called? It's like when you're still in nursing school and you're doing inpatient work, and I can't remember what it's called, but I was doing that, and this guy who wasn't even the person that I was supposed to be kind of looking after, but I had sort of chatted him up a few times. He was in the same room as the man that I was following, and he started what we call like crashing, where his oxygen went really low and he started having coffee ground emesis. So throwing up kind of this like old black blood, and his heart stopped. And one of my fellow students and I, as well as some of the hospital staff, did CPR, attempted to resuscitate him. Eventually he did have a heartbeat again, but died a few days later. Yeah, death. Life is guaranteed to no one. Each day, we often, I find that most people don't really go around life thinking about death that much, and I think that's pretty typical and normal. We're in a culture right now that really doesn't like to look at death and have an awareness around it, especially when it comes to babies and kids, but even with our own self-mortality. Most people say that they want to die at home, but most people are dying in hospitals. I worked in palliative care for several years, where I worked mostly with people that were nearing the end of their life. I witnessed many last breaths in the hospital, held people's hands as their spirits left their bodies. And I feel like there's a lot of fear around death, around pain, and I feel like more conversations about death could bring people more peace, and also to embrace life, because I'm not guaranteed tomorrow or next week or next year, and experiencing Bjorn's death was one of those things that just brought me into this awareness and living life in this more full appreciative day. Not that I don't have down days or things like that, but to embrace, I definitely feel like I embrace life in a way that's different to a lot of my peers, and express love and joy and things to those people in my life, because I know that maybe you just never know. Someone could die in a car accident, someone could have a brain aneurysm, a freak accident. There's so many things that could happen, and so every opportunity I get, I tell all the beautiful, wonderful people in my life how much I love them, because I don't want to regret not having said it. So yeah, that's one practice that I have in my life that my walk with death has brought to me. What else can I say about birth and death today? I've heard people say that like you birth and die as you live. And I'm not exactly sure what that means to most people, or even what that would mean to me. What does that mean to you? I'm not sure. Well, I know this is a surprise live and I don't see any questions or anything popping up now, so I think I'm just gonna let this be as it is for now. But if you're watching this later, thank you for watching this, and if some questions did come up, I would love to hear what you have to say or stories you might want to tell about your own experiences with birth and death. A lot of people don't know their own birth story. Do you know your own birth story? Like, my internet's going in and out. Save that story for another day, I suppose. Hope you're having a beautiful September afternoon. I certainly am. Love, love, love.